So a quick intro and talk about myself for a little bit. I'm really lucky. I get to work on open source full time. Been doing that for 5 years or so now. My primary thing that I work on is called SST. You might have heard of it. It's very similar to stuff like Terraform. It's an infrastructure as code tool. Helps you deploy anything. It's kind of a next generation thing where not only do we give you full access to low-level stuff, you can also deploy high-level concepts like we work with all the major frameworks to have out-of-the-box support for things like Next.js, Remix, all the different popular frameworks. We've got all kinds of components for you. Pretty much anything you want to build, you can grab from here. If you are going to graduate and do something more complex, you don't have to eject out. You get low-level access to all the AWS stuff as well, and we support anything. So whether you're using AWS, Cloudflare, whatever, we did start in the AWS space. That's where we're the most popular, used by huge companies, small companies, et cetera. Pretty much the default for AWS at this point. But that's actually not what I'm here to talk about. I also work on this other thing called terminal.shop. This is a funny little side project where I'm going to remove this little picture-in-picture thing. Hang on. Where me and a bunch of our friends, we started a coffee company. We're all programmers. A bunch of those guys are Twitch streamers, so they're really crazy. You can probably guess which ones. And we decided to, start a coffee shop together. And this is our website. But if you look, there's actually no way to buy coffee on the website because you can only buy it through the terminal. So if you do SSH terminal.shop, you guys are not going to believe this if you haven't seen it. You get a full coffee shop buying experience. Look at that. You can buy our coffee, do it everything. Check out right here. You put in your credit card, everything. Then you order, and the coffee shows up to your house, and it works. The coffee's great. All of you are going to buy it. I know you are. So this being our side project, I'm working on stuff. The Twitch streamers are unemployed, but it's hard to get them to focus on anything. So we don't have a lot of time. We don't have a lot of time to just manage operations for this. So we have a problem of how do we deal with customer support? How do we deal with all the practicalities of running a business when it's not our primary thing? So I'm going to walk through some of our journey through that, and we're going to get to something pretty interesting, I think. So we initially found this thing called Interval. It's a pretty cool product. Unfortunately, the company, don't leave. Nope, I left. Give me a second. Jump back in here. Got it, present. Entire screen. Okay, all right, we're back.
Mute the tab and then we're good to go.
Mute the tab. No, I'm good. Okay. So you can see here, we have this dashboard that lets us manage various things. So this is our dev environment. And we can manage our products. We can see our orders. We can do a bunch of stuff here. But we didn't have to build all the UI for it. So if I take you here, so Interval unfortunately got acquired, and then it was open source, so some other people picked it up and called it Forge. It gives you. It's kind of like a front-end framework in a lot of ways. So it gives you just, a bunch of routes you can implement. And in those routes, you can define these pages, and you can say, hey, this page needs to show a table, and it needs to show all these products. What's cool about this is it's not running somewhere else. It's not like a cloud-hosted thing. It's sitting inside your code base. So I can import other code I have in my code base. So I can import my database connection, I can query the database, I can do all this stuff, and I don't have to build a UI. And it lets me build a lot of these things without too much effort. So this is where we were, and this is really helpful, and it helps us reduce a lot of the work that we have to do otherwise. But anytime we have something new we need to do, we still need to come here and build a tool for ourselves. So like any internal tool, it'll handle the most obvious things, but then it won't handle kind of the more just this workflows that we never got to automating, right? So it doesn't really fully solve that. So from there, we had we're chugging along with that, and then we ended up coming across Claude Code, which came out a few weeks ago. And this is just a coding tool that runs in the terminal. And we were pretty impressed by it because the way that it works is it's a standard LLM. You guys all have used them by now. But they give it access to tools. Tools can be stuff like, here's a function you can call to read a file. Here's a function you can call to run a bash command. Here's a function you can call to, whatever. It ships with a handful of tools. And it's amazing at composing them together. You can ask it the most craziest thing, and it'll figure out that, oh, if I call this tool, then this tool, then this tool, oh, this tool errored, let me try again with these arguments. It is amazing at that. So I was like, this is awesome. What if I gave it tools that represented stuff from my code base? So what we tried was we took Claude Code and we hacked in, I'm gonna show you a little demo here. We hacked in tools that let it read from our database, right? So I don't know if does audio work here?
Well, last month we had a much bigger charge.
Okay,
I know you're always complaining like I
watch
got
this real
this
quick.
80-cent charge that I'm getting from AWS and I cannot figure out what they're charging me for. Well, last month we had a much bigger charge on our bill and it was because of a mistake that we made. It took me like an hour to track it down, but connecting Claude to our AWS account means it can probably do that work for me. So let's give that a try. So we can ask it, hey, in February 2025, we had a spike in our AWS bill. Can you investigate and figure out in detail what caused this? You can ask that question. And this isn't the type of thing where it's going to come back with an answer right away. It's going to spend some time to look into what's going on. You can step away, do some other work for a couple minutes. It's only gonna take 1 or 2 minutes, and then it'll come back, hopefully with a really good summary of what's going on. So we'll just jump forward to that. Okay, so we've got the answer now. It took about, I think, 70 seconds or so. So let's see what it says. Looks like NAT gateway costs jumped from around $40 a day to $1,700 on February 21st, $2,600, 22nd, dropped back down on February 23rd. So not only did it figure out the service that caused a spike, it then went in, looked through metrics, looked through logs, got a sense of what was normal, figured out what days it was abnormal, and pulled them out for me. And you can see it did figure out the actual traffic. Like, normally you're doing this much, but on these days you had a spike and you did a lot more. It showed that connection counts also correspond. There's no error alert, so it's not related to an error. Pretty good summary that lets me know where it's coming from. And the reason it went back down is because we figured it out ourselves and we jumped into it and to fix it. But this would have been super helpful in the moment because this took us a while to even figure out on our own. So man, connecting this AWS tool to LLMs, super useful.
Yeah, so the idea there is I gave Claude access to our AWS account, which people hated, by the way. People were like, how could you do this? Like, this is so irresponsible. We did give it we'd only give it read-only access first, but then I gave it write access too, because, it's pretty useful, so it's fine. Nothing bad has happened yet, so. By the way, after that, people were so pissed. They're like, how could you do this? I gave it access to a Stripe account. I gave it access to my credit cards. It's been great so far, so no problem there. After that demo, we were like, okay, this is awesome. Let's try to make this something. Because so for our users of SST, they're always jumping into AWS account, trying to figure stuff out. We've read all the AWS docs, so we know how to do that. Look at my face, I look kind of tired. It's because I've read every single AWS doc. But our users, don't know how to do that stuff. So having something like this where they can describe to them what they need to do and have it do it, it's pretty useful. So we decided to build a tool called Open Control, and we actually released the beta of it today, right before I came here. We put it out because people were super excited about it. So we got a really simple thing out here, and I'm going to show you guys a demo of. So this is our Open Control instance for terminal, and right now it's just kind of a basic chat screen. So we can try something. It's a live demo, so I guarantee you it's probably not going to work, but we'll try here. We'll say what orders were placed by, and I'm going to use my email. And it'll go, so the tools that this has access to, it has access to my database, it has access to our Stripe account, it has access to our AWS account as well. So you can see it'll just try stuff randomly, and we can introspect here. It just guessed you probably have an orders table. We actually do singular. So it's going to introspect, and it's going to look into it. By the way, the rate limits on our cloud account are really, really limited, so that we might be, like I said, live demo, of course, is not going to work. Let me open this up and let me run it again. What was the last order placed by? My whole team's sharing an API key right now, so we're probably stepping on each other. No, hang on.
Effectively wrap cloud code, right?
Yeah, so it supports any model. We found that Anthropic's models are like by a long shot better than anything else at this like composing tools problem. Hang on, let me try one more time. What orders were made by check the DB.
This is a tool you wrote, or the Anthropic wrote the tool to access your email?
No, so this is open control. It lets you expose any kind of tool you want to Anthropic. So we're using their models, yes, but this is a framework to let you expose tools to it. And I'll show you behind the scenes how it works. Okay, so now it's figuring it out. We can see like it is looking for orders from me. It figured out the schema of the table. No, yeah, we're just hitting the rate limit. So unfortunately, I can't show you the demo, but I'll pull up some clips that I recorded earlier in a second. Let me try this one more time. Let me try. I'll try a different query. I'll say find orders by from Stripe. This might be a shorter one.
Is this using 3.7?
Yeah, it's just using 3.7. So it still works pretty well with 3.5, but 3.7 tends to work the best. So yeah, found my customer ID, finds payment. Now it's looking for payments. It's probably going to fail again. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I can say, hey, it worked. Okay. Can you refund any that aren't refunded? So we've actually been using this for all of our support now. So whenever we get a thing, we just like describe what it needs to do and it just goes and does it, which is amazing when it works. But yeah, it says beta right on the thing. So
This is public and anybody can just query about anybody else.
yeah, go to opencontrolterminal.com, send yourself money, go ahead. Yeah, no, this is password protected, so you know, like it's only auth to our team. So there you go. It refunded my most recent order. So there you go. So basically, we can use this to compose all kinds of complicated things. And I'll show you a few other. These are just screenshots. So I'll show you some things that I've done in the past. So this one, I had to add myself as a verified email in SES. I can just tell how to do that. It goes and does it. Here's another one where I was asking how to optimize my costs. It found that one of my functions was allocated with too much memory, so it like analyzed the history on the metric side and said you can actually cut the memory in half. And then me and my wife, who's here, we're also working on a version of this that's for your personal finance data. So here, how often do I pay Mosquito Joe? Do you guys know what Mosquito Joe is? You guys live in Miami, you don't know what Mosquito Joe is? They just come to your house and they spray your yard and they get rid of the mosquitoes. It's great. So I was looking at the pricing and I was like, I don't remember if I was paying that much this whole time because they charged me every 2 weeks. So I asked them like, hey, what's my payment history? Did my prices go up? So I checked my financial history and said, hey, no, that you've always been paying this much. So giving it access to these tools, you know, makes it very powerful. And the code for it is crazy, crazy simple. So if we jump back into terminal code base, we have a single file, that's really all that it takes, with a bunch of tools in it. Right, so we got a database read tool, database write tool, and an inventory check tool and a Stripe tool. The idea here, same as interval, it just sits inside of your code base. So you can import functions that are in your code base. So if you look at the database read tool, really simple, just importing the database from your existing code base. You have a database connection, and it's just running your query in a transaction. I have it as read-only for that. And then because I'm crazy, I also have a write version. So this lets me actually write stuff to my database. Again, very useful. It has not messed up yet. So, we'll see. I might be back here next week. Not too happy, but it's pretty good so far. And here's a cool part. So then I was like, okay, I want to implement a Stripe tool. And in my head, I was like, okay, I got to import the Stripe SDK. I got to do all that stuff. But LLMs are really smart. They already know about Stripe. So I actually just tell it, here's a tool. And in the tool, you can specify the arguments that it takes. It takes a method, a path, query parameters, content type, body, and it knows about Stripe. So it just tells me, hey, make this fetch call to Stripe. I'll inject the auth API key into it. That's enough. This is for the thing that I showed you earlier, where it fetched the Stripe transactions and then it sent a refund. This is the whole tool for it. So these things are so good at figuring out how to drive the tools. All they really need is a basic schema. And that's it. And so here, this is our internal API that I gave it access to. So you can use it with any model. We're using Sonnet 3.7. Yesterday I tried with everything. I was begging Gemini Flash to do anything, but it was not doing it. OpenAI's models are also kind of bad at this, which is a little surprising. So for now, Claude 3.7 is the best option. I'm sure over time they get better. And I pass in a list of tools. This gets deployed to its own URL. You can deploy however you want. If you're using SST, it's an out-of-the-box thing. But you can deploy it to a container, a Lambda function, whatever you want. And then you just get a URL with that UI that I showed you earlier. Yes?
Is that similar to how you connected it to your AWS account? Did you hand it the AWS SDK, or did you?
Yeah, so the AWS tool, this is one that we're shipping with SST. So let me just find it real quick. Yeah, so this one was fun. This one, we did use the AWS SDK, the V2 one, for a specific reason, and I'll show you why. So for the AWS tool, we ask it for a client, a command, and args. And we tell it this is an AWS SDK for JavaScript V2 tool. And it just tells us the client and the command and the args. So this will be something like S3 get describe buckets and then whatever the arguments are, and it knows how to drive it. So it does a pretty good job there.
You just package this and take my money.
Yeah, so we're gonna launch a standalone version of this that's just a website. You go in, connect to your AWS account, and you can kind of talk to it, and don't have to set any of this stuff up. But giving it access to your database, to your internal functions, is pretty useful. So if you look at the terminal one, we have this inventory function, and this is going back to domain-driven design, like you mentioned, we have an inventory domain, and we record changes in inventory. We give it access to that function, and it can just call it instead of directly writing to the database. So it's a little bit safer than just giving it direct write access to the database. This will go through validation and all other business logic you have.
So this effectively wraps up, if I don't know custom tools, we'll wrap it up into a single big monolithic MCP server and then talk directly effectively to it.
Yeah, so I was trying to avoid using the word MCP because I'm sick of seeing how many people are talking about MCP right now. But under the hood, this does implement the MCP protocol. So you can connect to it through any MCP client. What we found is Cloud Code is the only good MCP client. The rest of them suck. So that's why we ended up building our own client, which is a UI that you saw there. And it is all powered by MCP in the background. But because there aren't great MCP clients today, we built our own. In the long run, that might change. In the long run, this whole project might not make any sense, but it makes sense for now. Okay, going back to my notes here. So I showed you guys this stuff, showed you the code. So I'm gonna go on a segue right here. So a lot of these companies have butthole logos, right? A lot of AI companies. Perplexity, ChatGPT, Claude. This one's the most abstract, but I think it's beautiful. I don't know. So we decided to enter the game with our own butthole logo. So this is open control. We launched this today. Let me see. I think I have a pinned thread on this. So it's on GitHub. You can go check it out. We have some basic instructions for you to get it deployed into your own account. Like I said, we're going to have, just because so a lot of people just want to be able to talk to their AWS account or their GCP account, whatever, we're We're going to build a nice little hosted version as well. And yeah, that's it. There you go, opencontrol.ai. And yeah, that's all I got. Any questions? Yeah.
For the tools that you're defining, like I totally get it that like the LLMs are like effectively masters of Stripe more than any
Yeah.
in the room. For tools that are like more niche that like may not be there, like how do you go about exposing that?
Yeah, so this is something we've explored as well. So Terminal itself has an API. So we're going back to here. We're doing a launch week next week because we're like a real tech company. And we're launching a bunch of really dumb stuff. The first day is a Terminal API. You can order coffee through an API, build your own integrations. We're having a whole contest for a lifetime free supply of coffee. But obviously, LMs don't know anything about Terminal API. So I exposed it as two different tools. The first tool is a Terminal OpenAPI tool, where all this does is return the OpenAPI spec back to the LLM. So if the LLM figures, hey, I want to query the Terminal API, first it'll fetch this, which is just a fetch call to the doc endpoint, which gives you back the OpenAPI specifications. And then I kind of give it the similar to Stripe, a generic fetch tool with method path query body token. I think I was making it get the token from the end user, but we can have like a built-in token as well. And it just drives this perfectly.
So like the fact that you have like
Yeah,
very well specified open API schema,
yeah.
that works heavily to your advantage.
Yeah, that helps it a lot, but you could literally return a PDF or like any kind of documentation that you have about it, and it can figure it out. Yeah.
Cool.
Go ahead, you first.
So
Yeah.
am I understanding correctly that essentially you can give the tool to the LLM, have it be relatively simple, and yet it's able to drive it that well because it knows Stripe so well?
Yeah, exactly. So in the cases like it knows Stripe really well, it knows MySQL really well, so it'll like figure out all the. So it like in the case where I asked it, well, what was my last order? It just tried to guess select from orders, but our table is called order. It gets the error, it realizes, oh, this is a problem. Then it introspects, will do like a describe table or like a, whatever the command is to show this. I don't even know it. My brain's off at this point. I just let the LM drive. And it can introspect and figure it out. So built-in knowledge it has is very good. Yes?
When you have it talking your AWS account, how is that actually working under the hood? Is it like using the CLI for AWS or does it go through your phone?
Yeah, so the tool there was the AWS SDK tool, and then we deploy it. So in our case, we have it, okay, so we use SC to deploy it, and when we deploy, we have an open control component that lets you deploy it. We can just grant it permissions. So in this case, in dev mode, we give it administrator access. In production, we give it read-only access. Lambda function has credentials. It executes the AWS SDK inside the function, which has access to everything.
So it's running as a Lambda function that it's calling.
Yeah, exactly. The Lambda function exposes tools. And that's just our flavor of it. You can deploy it as a container, a Cloudflare worker, whatever you want. Is that something?
My question is this like an AI agent that has access to tools? Or?
I don't know what the word agent means still. Like I've been building this stuff for months now. I do not know what the word agent is. Yeah, it's an LLM that LLMs have tool calling capability.
Yeah.
And this is just a way to expose your code as tools in a really simple way.
Can it work autonomously or it has to be giving your command at each time?
Yeah, so the method for this is like, it's someone that's like interacting with it.
Yeah.
If you want to put it behind like a cron or something async that can trigger it, I don't think you need any of this stuff for. I think there's like better tools for that. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
mine's kind of an implementation question. Could you jump back to the code that calls the terminal API real quick?
The open API thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right here.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm unfamiliar with NCP. So when you tell NCP to like give user input to the API, like that personal access token, is that being passed back into the LLM and then back out? Or?
Yeah, so this is not how it would actually do it. This was like a test thing that I was doing. So in this case, before I tried to call it, it would ask the user for the token. You would paste it and it would send it up. Realistically, it would work more like the Stripe one, where there's like some environment variable that's in the Lambda function that gives it access, which is how it's working over there. Yeah.
Could you in theory, and this is probably a really bad idea, just be like.
This whole thing's a bad idea. So
It's like copying your Stripe, your Stripe key.
yeah, you can just paste it in there.
Said that.
Yeah, exactly. So
The second observation, so I'm just curious to dog HTTP like
Yeah.
parameters, and instead of doing like JSON schema for Stripe, because like APIs changed.
Yeah.
And so like providing the whole schema each time is also like a decently expensive way to do tokens. But like if you assume that the knowledge is baked into the LLM, as the LLM sort of like progressively get smarter in their own way, get updated with the latest information in the world.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter about the schema at all. You can just give it the raw dog HTTP interface,
Yeah.
and it has the knowledge on how to use it.
Yeah, exactly. The LM companies are incentivized to make sure their stuff stays up to date. It's an unsolved problem, and everyone's kind of, as time goes on, like that cutoff is becoming more painful. But there's clever things you can do where, in the terminal case, I'm dumping out the whole OpenAPI schema. But you can give it a tool that's like, hey, here's just a list of all the resources in my schema. Then give it another tool that's like, for a given resource, what are all the OpenAPI specs for it? So then it can first check the first thing, which is small, then realize, oh, I only care about the order resource, and it can ask it for the docs of the order resource, and it goes back and forth. So the back and forth is slow, but then the context, it's like less stuff in the context. And the reason I was really trying to get Gemini working is Gemini's really fast. And this demo with like an instant LLM is like really awesome, because it's just like boom, 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 boom. So I'm hoping these things get faster while retaining some of the capabilities. Instead of like slow, kind of annoying demo that I showed you, would be like instant. Yeah.
Last thing I'm curious about, these are all like read-only effectively tools.
I mean, I got a write only in there. Not write only, I got a write tool in
I
there.
was curious if you experienced like more write-only stuff, because like there's some like hilarious failure modes of like
Yeah.
using cloud code, or just like dig deep into the ether and like
Yeah.
fail. I'm
Yeah.
curious if you've seen any of that with like this read-only.
Like I said, so far, no. And I have this database write tool in there, and I've used it a bunch, so it's been fine. Like if you look at the description, I'm like, you must triple check before using this tool. Show them the query you're about to run. In practice, it just gives me a giant warning and then runs the tool right away without prompting me. So obviously some work to do. I think in our framework, we'll probably, like most MCP clients let you say, database read, do it as much as you want. Database write, like make me accept every time. So there's like certain patterns for that stuff. And we're probably going to build permissions and stuff in so you can give your team access and say, most people only have access to database read. Some people have access to database write. Yeah.
So this is a huge thing though, that like MCP has no like authorization system like built into it.
Yeah, but the spec like there's a spec in progress for auth,
Yeah.
but not granular permissions. It's just for the authentication part. Yeah.
I was curious what your plans for doing off are that are like different than spec.
Yeah, well, I think at the end of the day, the server side of this, the only reason this exists today is because with MCP, again, for those of you that are not aware, MCP is like a standard protocol for exposing tools that Anthropic has invented, tools and other stuff as well. But it was like not a good spec initially. It couldn't run in a lot of places, so we really want to deploy into a Lambda because this is a perfect thing that goes in a Lambda. You're not using it every day. You're using it like a couple times a day at most, so you don't want to pay for it really. Their current implementation of spec did not run in a Lambda. We convinced them to now do an iteration of the spec that is stateless and can run in a Lambda. So the server side of this, instead of importing from Open Control, you're probably just going to import from the MCP SDK. But the client side, which is where you'd implement like permissions and all that stuff, would probably still exist. Yes.
The question has been long, but like I'm curious how you think about like how the verification tooling will evolve. Because I found, for example, when you build like DAG pipelines, like the agents will just make it work. But
Yeah.
you then have to have in some sense, like your data visualization tools have to be so much better because you have to like track the changes that it's made and be like, no, that was a retarded SQL query. Oh, that was like the wrong cross join, yada yada. And I feel like even in using cursors, like when it changes a chunk, like the git diff works when it changes one piece of code. When it changes like 12 files, you're like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, like how you think the like verification tooling will change?
Yeah, so the thing I'll say is we plugged this exact thing into Cursor and it was awful. Like Cursor's horrible at this kind of thing. So the only reason we bothered doing any of this is because we saw it demoed in Cloud Code, and Cloud Code is just like so much better at just nailing this stuff correctly. So we found that if you look at our use case, it's not for anything serious. It's for internal tooling. It's for internal operations things. So I don't actually care what it did. Like I just wanted to make sure it did the right thing. And we have some tools in there to like just introspect what happened. I don't think we're going to invent anything that incredible there. Maybe someone will figure it out and we'll be able to use it. But yeah, like I said, we're kind of just solving our own problems with managing our own operations with this kind of thing. And for that, we haven't needed to do too much introspecting. Yes.
How does Claude Code, having used it, compare to Claude Desktop? Is it just a matter of different interface, one's a terminal, one's potentially a web browser or executable? And then the second question is, OpenAI launched Responses API a week or so ago.
Yeah.
You saw that?
Yeah.
Open Control seems somewhat similar to that. You just throw a decorator before a function or two in front of a function.
Yeah.
And it makes it a tool.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, so there's sort of, like there's still the process of like deploying it and like giving the LLM access. That's not something that the Responses API does out of the box, so this is more about the deployment side. But to answer your first question about Claude Code versus Claude Desktop, so I was using Claude Desktop and I was getting worse results than Claude Code. It made no sense to me because I'm like, they're both the same thing. So I was like, oh, maybe Claude Code is doing something magic. And I ended up intercepting all the requests Claude Code was making to see is it doing anything special. It's not. It's just calling stuff in a loop. I think it just comes down to the system prompt for Claude Code tells it to be really terse, really brief. Like kind of really tunes it to this type of workflow. Whereas Claude Desktop is like a general purpose tool. So I think that's all it really comes down to.
Which were you intercepting? The Claude Code?
Claude Code one, yeah. Yeah, so we like recorded everything it was doing, and it wasn't doing anything crazy. We just intercepted the system prompt, and that's probably where all the magic was.
Which tool did you use to intercept this?
Just something called man-in-the-middle proxy. It's something that runs in your terminal, and you can pass an environment variable to any process, and it'll route through it. It's an HTTP interceptor.
Did a similar exercise as well. They use the like analytics stuff that they send as well with like their requests. Like a ton of analytics.
You did that with Claude Code or with?
Cloud Code. Like a ton of like other like analytics.
I don't think I was paying attention. I think I was just so focused on the API calls, but I didn't notice. I'm sure there's some a lot of analytics that makes sense.
A lot. It's like opt-in. No, sorry, I don't even know if it's opt-out. I couldn't even find a way to opt-out. It's gonna regardless.
SST sends opt-out, a ton of opt-out analytics too, so I'm not gonna pretend we're any better. Okay, that's it. Any other questions? Good? Good? All right.